This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. The highly energetic and very conversational Kim Richmond talks about the power of mentoring startup businesses. This is a topic the Business Observer writes about often. To read more stories in the Business Observer, go to businessobserverfl.com/subscribe. Hello, and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Kim Richmond, director of the 26 West Entrepreneurship Center at State College of Florida. Kim, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Yeah, it'll be a good conversation. We're going to talk about 26 West, and we're going to talk about leadership and some other parts of your career. And you've had a couple of interesting jobs we're going to get to in a second. Not that 26 West isn't interesting because it's fascinating, but give us the elevator pitch of 26 West. What is that, and what is your niche?
So 26 West is a spectacular place located here on the campus of State College of Florida. And interestingly enough, though we serve our students through experiential learning, our real focus is the business community. Our mission is to develop people, grow businesses, and ultimately drive our local economy. So we help entrepreneurs and small business owners at literally every stage of their life stage, whether it's renting office space or classes or courses to help them get started or grow. And we even run a full service digital marketing agency here.
A lot happening at 26 West. And one of the things about your career that I'm so impressed by and so it's so interesting is that you're not an academic throughout your whole career. You've actually done some of these things that you're talking about at 26 West. And one in particular, how cool is this? You worked for a toy store company. So I want to hear about FAO Schwarz, but tell us about your career, Kim, and kind of how you've grown into different leadership roles.
Yeah, what a great question. It's funny. I always say that this job is the nexus of my career because I've done so many cool things and they all come together in this. But interestingly enough, I started my career probably similar to how you did, which is this passion for words. I was a journalism major in undergrad, and my very first job out of college, I was a copywriter for the Sears catalog. And what I learned is, I wrote things like machine wash, warm, tumble dry, right? What a great line. But here's what I learned. They used to make us go work in the stores once a quarter at Sears. So I would go out from the Sears tower. And I remember one time working in the store, and these two women came in and they had this sale catalog that I had written the copy in, and they were looking at the draperies. And I thought to myself, this is pretty amazing that these are people I've never known and that I can move them to action with words, right? And so I was lucky enough to be promoted throughout my career. I held a job like National Retail Marketing Manager for cooking appliances at Sears. There I was, 29 years old, responsible for a P&L for $750 million in business.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So you grow up really fast and learned how to build relationships with people who were in the business longer than I had been alive.
Yeah, and I want 2 points about that, but one point is Sears, for our audience who doesn't know, Sears was a big deal, right? I mean, Sears was
big deal.
It was more than Walmart, Kmart. It was the department store. It was everything.
It was, yes, it was America's brand. It was what Amazon is today. Everybody went to Sears for everything. And it's really a sad tale of what happened. It was lack of leadership, to be perfectly honest.
A good point that led to their decline. But you learned something really interesting about writing. You said that you started out that way. You learned how to write tight, right? Copywriters have to write very specific and very tight. And that is a very important and good skill to have.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think it really, really feeds into leadership. because leadership really is, you have to have vision, you have to be able to articulate that vision, and you have to be able to inspire people to see that vision. And so those words, it's the old words matter, but words, whether it's the written word or whether it's the verbal delivered word, it is, that has really served me throughout my entire career.
Yeah, and tell us about some of the leaders that you met along the way that you learned from. Who are they, and what have you learned from them?
So I have had, really the honor of working for some pretty amazing people who've made some amazing decisions. Some at Sears, and it's funny. I remember a boss at Sears, and I was an assistant of nothing. Like, I was way down in the totem pole. And I remember he came in and he wanted to learn all about what was going on. I was the assistant retail marketing manager and prepared everything. My boss, we had everything laid out. And I remember the meeting started and it ended 12 days later. I mean, like literally wall to wall. And he really took me under his wing because I was willing to work and I would run all the numbers. I would do all the things. And so I was exposed to so many things. And I learned from him directly as a mentor, and I learned from him as a leader and watched how he led inside this big bureaucracy and changed things. And I think that idea of leadership is that it's not enough to just maintain a business. We're stewards of a business, no matter where we are, whether it's our business or we're working for someone else, and really understanding the vision. And again, moving people to action, whether they're your customers or the people who work for you, and inspiring them. I have had the honor of working around people like him. I had another great boss when I worked at Kraft Foods. Same thing, big company, changing things. And I'll always give him credit. He said he hired me because I didn't have food experience. Think about that.
Yes. Yeah. So he wanted to hire you because of your character, it sounds like, or some other trait, not because you knew what cheese was moved where.
Exactly. And what he said is he wanted somebody who could come from outside the industry, who would be able to bring different skills inside. And so that act taught me things that, normally when we hire people, we want people who have all these perfect characteristics, who've done X, Y, and Z for this many years. But this idea that he took a chance on me and that he actually sought out candidates that didn't have the traditional experience that Kraft looked for, I think that said a lot. And it absolutely reflected in his management style and, more importantly, in his leadership style.
Yeah. So you're building this career, and at some point you go to this famous toy store brand, FAO Schwarz. Tell us about that.
Yes, FAO. It's fun. It was the parent company, FAO Inc., owned three brands: FAO Schwarz, Zany Brainy, and the Right Start. And sadly, the parent company ultimately filed for bankruptcy because Zany Brainy was too highly leveraged. So Zany Brainy was liquidated. The Right Start was sold actually to one of our board members. And we, the CEO, I, and the head of merchandising, we had 3 weeks to sell the company, or it too would have been liquidated. And so we went on a roadshow and we ended up selling the company, and it was bought by a hedge fund based in New York. So, talk about getting your entrepreneurial chops in a different way, right? You learn from the corporate world to the hedge fund world pretty darn quickly.
Well, sure. What was that experience like? The pressure to meet all this demand and be perfect with all these. The road shows are hard. You are under the gun all the time. What was that like for you in your career?
Yeah. So the most important thing was that we had to deliver a business plan that was different. So here's the thing about the FAO store in New York. 3 million people went to it every year. Imagine having that kind of traffic. And yet we couldn't make any money. Why? Because we were offering the same things that Toys R Us or Walmart was offering. People would come and see them in this spectacular environment, and then they'd go, you know what, we'll buy them at home. So what we did is we put together, and I mean, when I'm talking days and nights, days working, we put together a business plan. And what we said is we're not going to carry anything that is carried by mass retailers. Not so easy to do in the toy business, right? So we went to our vendors, not so easy to do in bankruptcy because we had just stiffed them. And we said, okay, Mattel, how can we do this differently so that we're not offering Hot Wheels for 99 cents? So we ended up building a Hot Wheels kiosk where you could customize your Hot Wheels car. We were getting $20 per car, and we had a line for people to customize them. So throughout the store, we had a Madame Alexander doll factory. We had a American Kennel Club, Stife plush toys. So we had a variety of things. We opened an ice cream parlor to make it easy for people to spend money, whether they bought toys or not. And so this whole business strategy is what we took on the roadshow. That is what convinced the buyers to buy us. And then what they did is they said, we believe in your business plan so much that we're going to close down the stores. Okay. And that was the best possible thing. And here's why. They said, you need to actually execute this and execute it with precision. So what happened was at the corner of 58 and 5th, it was closed 8 months. 8 months. So imagine going from a dead stop, okay, 8 months, nothing's going on that corner, to a grand opening where we had a line so long that it went from 5th Avenue to Madison Avenue and didn't go away for 3 months.
Yeah. Amazing turnaround story. How did you handle I'm curious about the resilient side, right? That's a lot on somebody personally to be able to sort of withstand and put up with that. What were some of your techniques to be able to get through all that?
Yeah, I think that that's all part of leadership. I think it is seeing the future and being fearless, being smart, but being fearless and knowing and believing that we could do it. It was that teamwork. We had a small team and we knew what we needed to do. And we also knew that we needed to be innovative and creative. Perfect example. We needed to staff the store with about 700 people, not all at one time. We had a lot of part-timers, of course. So how do you hire 700 people in Manhattan, like all at once? It's almost impossible. Yes, of course, you can run an ad, put it on Indeed, blah, blah, blah. But that wouldn't do it. So we had to figure out new ways. Here's what we did. We rented a theater off Broadway, and we had an open casting call. Because what we wanted is we didn't care if people knew how to ring a register. What we cared about is, could they bring the magic? We actually did a review. We ended up hiring David Rockwell, who's an amazing world-renowned architect. He redid the store. So we wanted the magic to come alive. It was all about the experience, the customer experience. So doing things like having an open casting call and having people come up on stage, and the senior management team was like the audience, and each person came up and we had like 20 toys on the stage. They could pick a toy, they could do a role play, they could sing, they could do whatever they wanted. And we could see who had the magic. They were nervous, but when we knew they had the magic, that's when we put them through to the more traditional round of, application, interview, background check, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was that innovative approach. Same thing in marketing. I did my homework. I found out that 50% of our transactions came from zip codes outside the trading area, which meant they were tourists. So I put together marketing, didn't have a big budget, is how do we attract tourists? So there we were in the NASDAQ building in Times Square, the number one tourist attraction, right? And actually did a private event for concierges, tour bus drivers, and their families,
Get in front of the right people.
Right? So that when they came in, we had a toy soldier at either side of the door, champagne on one tray, juice boxes on the other, right? And so what we wanted to do was have them experience this new FAO so that they in turn would tell their clients. So it was viral marketing even without social. And that's really how we relaunched. And I'm really proud to tell you, we had literally worldwide PR. We were on everything from CNN to MTV to TV in Australia and Poland and everything, because we took the time, to the credit of our owners, we took the time, we built out the plan that we had laid out, and at every single step along the way, we had to figure out how to do it smarter, better, faster, and more creative, because that was the representation of the brand.
Yeah, that's so amazing story of persistence and resilience. And as you talked about leadership and vision. So speaking of leadership, you've hired people obviously in your career, 26 West, you've hired people, but also seen young businesses and startups grow. What stands out to you about good leaders? What's good leadership characteristics that you value in somebody else?
Yeah. I'd like to say it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Certainly integrity, honesty, intellectual curiosity, those bedrock values that are important. And then I think the thing that really does make the difference in a great leader is that vision, the ability to articulate it, the ability to inspire. Because you know what? Whatever we do, no matter what jobs we're in, it's a grind. It's blocking and tackling. And when you can inspire people and then recognize progress, recognize them, celebrate successes, and you know what? Sometimes we even have to celebrate failures. And so that is what marks progress. So great, there's great managers. We have great managers. I've worked for great managers, but great leaders really elevate things with that vision and that constant, you're talking about resilience. That's when you need a leader. To be a leader in good times is easy. To be able to say, "Oh, great, we're going to do this, we're going to do this." It's when things are tough, and we have to have it from within as leaders that say, "Yep, you know what? We're going to pivot. You have to know when to pivot. We're going to keep going. This was a learning process, and we're going to move to here." Leaders have to take those chances. And so I think that leaders have to also be fearless, and people have to be able to detect that in you, that you're fearless. If people detect that you're unsure, they're going to be unsure. And what happens? They're going to do nothing, or they're going to postpone.
100% certainty. I have learned that in my experience leading a team at the Observer Media Group and the Business Observer. There's a advantage in being certain about something when you're making a decision. It certainly helps. And you mentioned, learn from failures. What's a failure or a setback or a mulligan or something that you learned from that you could do over with time?
Uh, there's so many of them, and they happen every day. I mean, I think we all know that. Sometimes you learn from the big ones, and you learn from the small ones. I can't help but think about something that I learned really, really young, and it's you're a newspaper guy. I'll tell you a newspaper story, and this leads into leadership, but it leads into just really being a smart business person. So I was in college. I had an internship at a regional newspaper in a suburb of Chicago. It was the first time they ever had an intern, and they put me in the sales department. And they said, go forth and sell, but you can't go anywhere you can't go to any accounts or anywhere where our established salespeople go. So what that meant was I had to go to Indiana. Okay, so if you know the geography, that's kind of far away. The newspaper didn't go there. So what I started doing is driving, going into places, blah, blah, blah. I was not successful. And I was like, I hate this. I hate this. I don't like not being successful. I don't like, hearing no. I don't like anything about it. And then finally, one day, I figured it was 100% commission. And my dad used to say to me, "Kim, you're the only person I know that goes to work and loses money," because I'd be driving. So one day I thought, you know what? I've got to sit down and I've got to figure out where I can go. I want to go to somebody big, and I want to sell a big ad, because I was going into these little places begging them to buy an ad. And they're like, "No, the paper doesn't go here." So I find this place, this big furniture warehouse place, and I find out that this guy who's the head of it, Mr. Munley, he smoked a big cigar at his big desk, right? I make an appointment to see him. So I'm this little college intern, and I give him my pitch. And let me tell you something, I was like shaking in my boots. And he says to me, "Can you give me the back page of A?" Now, I didn't even know what the back page of A was. So I call the office. I go, "Can I have the back page of A?" And they're like, "You can have the front page of A." Right? And so I sold him the ad, and then I learned that I wanted to guarantee success. So then I enlisted my mother. The newspaper comes out. I bring some newspapers home. I say to my mother, Mom, you got to get one of your friends and you got to go all the way to Indiana, go into this furniture store holding this ad. Right? Sure enough, I send her in. The next day, I come in to sell him the ad for the next week. And you know what? He bought the ad, and he bought the ad every week during the summer. But here's what I learned. So failure, it was horrible. I mean, we've all had it, but it was horrible. So what I learned was, yeah, do your homework. Don't just like randomly go around. I wasn't lucky enough to have a good mentor then. They just kind of let me out to go see what I could do. So I figured out you got to figure out what you're doing, whether you know it or not. You got to do your research. You've got to have that confidence and you got to know your stuff. And if you don't know it, you better figure out how you can find it out fast, like the back page of A. And so I look at that from my entire career of learning, because 50% of the jobs that I've had in my career are newly created positions. So I always had to figure out, okay, what is it? How is it going to work? What am I going to do? And most of all, how am I going to do something that focuses on the customer? So I often remember that experience because it was so vivid, it was so physical, it was emotional, it was all of the things. And I go, yep, I carry that with me.
Kim, that is like, and that's some serious guts is what that is. You know, I'm intimidated just hearing about this just cigar chomping guy from X many years ago. So credit to you for hanging in there. All right, so we're gonna fast forward a lot. You're at 26 West, and as we said earlier, there's all these really interesting and compelling and fun things happening. Give us an overview as we're winding down in 2024 here. What's next? What's coming up that you're particularly excited about for 26 West?
So we have grown in so many ways. And when we look at 2024 and what we're launching for 2025, as I said, we're actually, I'll back up just a little bit. We're really unique. We're not, sometimes people call us an incubator, but we're really not. We're truly, as you said, an entrepreneurship center. And our model is that we are self-sustaining. We were started with a grant from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, but the deal was we don't get to come back and ask for more money. So after our first year of operating expenses, we had to figure out how to make this self-sustaining. So I actually run 7 revenue-generating businesses, as I mentioned, everything from renting office space to a digital agency. So as we look forward, what we're excited to do is launch our second cohort of our incubator style program within the Entrepreneurship Center. We call it Grow Biz at 26 West. It is 1 year of support for select entrepreneurs and small business owners. And that means we take them through curriculum for building their business plan. Each one of them gets a one-on-one business coach, one of our coaches. They meet with their coach twice a month. They get money to spend at the Digital Collective, our digital marketing agency. And what's so cool is on December 3rd, actually just coming up around the corner, we're finishing off our first cohort with our pitch showcase. So our 6 founders that are completing the program are going to be pitching their businesses, and it's open to the public because we support our community and we want to support the entrepreneurs. And they are going to pitch. We've got a panel of judges, and the winning entrepreneur will get $5,000 in marketing services at our digital marketing agency. So that's pretty cool. Other thing that's we're very, very proud about is that we were recently named a partner for Veterans Florida. And Veterans Florida is a statewide entrepreneurship program. We are one of only 12 locations across the state. And so starting in 2025, we're opening, as a matter of fact, on Veterans Day, applications for that cohort. And that cohort is veterans, active military, and their spouses. And, again, it is entrepreneurship education, cohort style, helping someone to be able to get more focus around their business, to be able to launch and grow it. So those programs continue to really grow and feed our local economy.
Excellent. A lot of great things happening at 26 West. Okay, before we let you go, we have 3 rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
All right. The first one, what is the most used app on your phone?
Aside from texting and pictures, probably OpenTable.
Ooh, open table. I like it. Excellent.
Yeah.
We should do an episode on restaurant recommendations.
Without a doubt,
Right.
without a doubt. The only thing I know how to make in the kitchen is reservations. So
Love it. Awesome. What is your preference for vacation, beach or mountain?
A couple of weeks ago, I would have said beach, but my husband and I just got back from 2 weeks in South America, and we did both beach in Rio, and then a variety of things at Guazú Falls and Buenos Aires. But we ended the trip at this spectacular, amazing winery in the foothills of the Andes Mountains. And I'm here to tell you, my head could be turned on the mountains after that.
Excellent. I love it. All right. And even though we're recording this, it's still a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. You're going to be listening to this around Christmas. So what is a favorite Christmas memory?
Probably getting my first two-wheel bike, because I grew up in Chicago and I couldn't wait. And I remember my dad taking it outside so I could ride it with the training wheels on the ice, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, the bike represents freedom to a kid, right? It's a rite of passage. It's amazing.
It was everything. But I remember snow, ice, all of that. But yes, you're exactly right. I had my bike.
Fantastic. Excellent. Kim Richmond, director of the 26 West Entrepreneurship Center at State College of Florida. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Mark, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.